to consider it. But with that said, Ken, the floor is yours. Tell us where you're taking us.
Okay, thanks very much, Andrew. I've set a timescale in here of 6 months. I don't expect that at the end of 6 months everything's going to be absolutely hunky-dory and exactly how you would ever want it to turn out. But I think at the end of the 6 months we should be able to say where we want to go with the relationship with local councils. And at the end of it, what we wanted to do was to draw up, instead of a charter, some sort of new concordat with parish councils. What we're suggesting here is not just this council having a review and then deciding what the relationship should be with parish councils. I was going to say it's a carrot and stick thing, but there isn't really any stick in this. There's an awful lot of carrot which we're offering to parish councils. We've had discussions with CHALT, the Cheshire Association of Local Councils, and they're firmly behind the approach that I've set out here in the report. The seminars, I could have come up with, I've suggested 5 because I thought we'd miss out August when people are on holiday, but we do 1 per month. And I could actually have come up with 5 subjects. But what I thought we'd start with is that the council, this council, would decide what the first one would be. And I've suggested in there that it should be procurement or the offer from Cheshire West and Chester Council about what it can offer to parish councils because of its size, its buying power and so on. And then what I hope is that we then start to establish the relationship, and then out of that we can then agree what the other 4 seminars will be. I intend that over the 5 seminars we will actually cover all the things that we want to establish in a better relationship with parish councils. So in the scope of the review, if I just quickly go through the bullet points that we've listed there, a lot of this is about, as well as this council being more serious in its relationship with the parish councils, it's about driving up standards of governance, the ethical framework, promoting the quality councils. So the first point of this was to facilitate good practice, because there must be some good practice either within the 97 councils that we've got or more widely, and I discussed with Andrew about where is there in the country that does have a good relationship with parish councils, an up-to-date relationship. I think Gloucestershire was mentioned, but an ability to share good practice. So instead of 97 different inventions of the same thing, let's look at seeing how we can put that good practice in one place. And the suggestion there is that we have some sort of quality procedure toolkit. I think we did originally call it a manual, but a toolkit in a sort of more modern parlance where people could sort of use bits of it or not. And then the second one, which for some councils I think is a good carrot, and Northwich Town Council I know has been asking for a long time to this council, ever since we were established, about devolving more services down to them. And I suppose this bit is actually probably the only stick bit of it, because I think what we'll be saying is that we are willing to devolve councils, appropriate services down to local councils, but before we do that, we want you to have become a quality council or comply with our standards of ethical framework, good governance and so on. I've mentioned the transparent and good government standards. I've mentioned the quality councils. The next one is about the sharing and clustering of services. I think that there's 2 ways of looking at this. One of the examples that we discussed was the idea of sharing officers, sharing expertise amongst parish councils. So you could have, instead of having 97 clerks, you could have, in certain circumstances, 1 clerk for a series of councils. You then start to get a more professional approach to administration. The other thing is about what services Cheshire West and Chester Council could deliver in a shared sense to the parish councils. So another example was, instead of having, again, 97 different types of legal advice, could it not be that Cheshire West and Chester Council provides a central place where legal advice can be obtained, that sort of thing, and there must be other services which we could do that with. There's also other things that we could do in terms of a support package, an offer which we could make, which local councils could then decide to accept or not accept. And I've listed them there. Legal we've mentioned, ICT services, also web hosting as well, accountancy services, HR, and the procurement of goods and services. I think that will form a big plank of the first seminar that we have. I mean, if you think of the buying power that we've got, if providing we get our act together and we make it easy, and there's a proper catalogue that people can draw upon, you would think that we can make some huge savings there, and that the parish council can then actually take some efficiency from that.
I'll just interrupt that, Ken. I think it's worth noting that local councils raise around about £2.5 million through their precept, so it's not something that we should ignore. It's a serious amount of money. Sorry, Ken.
It's okay. And then training. We ought to be able to offer our training that we provide for members and for officers to parish councils as well. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever why we should only do it for ourselves. And we can either have sort of generic training sessions in appropriate cases, or we can arrange separate training sessions which are more appropriate to them. And then, as we go through the seminars, there might be other things that people raise and say, why don't you do this for us? We'd be quite interested in that. I think we should be open to that as well. I've mentioned about the ethical standards framework, and we are keen on that, and ensuring that the parish councils comply with that. The thorny issue of double taxation, and I was slightly tempted to say, well, we'll just skip over that, but I think we wouldn't get more than about 5 minutes into it before that was brought up by the Chester Council. So I think that we have to explore that, and we have to debate that, and see what we can do about amelioration of that. And then the next thing is that I spoke at the Community Select Panel, which Pam chaired, about taking on area working, which I think probably after the general election, when things are settled down, I think that we're going to have to come up with some proposals about how we do develop area working, about clarifying the relationships between down the LSP governance through the thematic groups, the area partnership boards, the community forums, and I think there's quite a lot of redefinition needs to be done there. And it's about how the parish councils can work within that, and they can get benefit out of it, and that we start to improve that two-way dialogue. So I am hoping that one of the seminars that we have, when this council gets a little bit more understanding where it wants to go, can be about that relationship and about how people can get things up the chain and how we can get down that chain as well, and get people more involved. And from that, hopefully a more community development role. The current charter which we want to replace with a concorder. And then an issue which is almost slightly separate, which is the support for the parish planning process. We do give some support for the parish planning process, but I'm not sure how well structured that is, and whether that's more of a sort of as and when we can find time and so on. But I think most people would say that the parish planning process is a good process, it's a good thing to do, and I think that we should find some more rigorous way of supporting that. And then finally a catch-all, which is anything else that any of the councils come up with.